Council meeting for Monday, April 7th, 2025. Before we get underway, we'd like to acknowledge that this council meeting has been held on the homeland of the Kanaka people. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda of the regular council meeting Monday, April 7th, 2025, please? Councillor Graham, Councillor Stetsky. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Can I get a motion to adopt the following minutes of the public hearing on Monday, March 24th, 2025, minutes of the regular meeting of council on Monday, March 24th, 2025. Councillor Stetsky, Councillor Blissett. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you very much. We'll move into a public hearing right away here. We have a couple of issues we're dealing with a public hearing. This public hearing is being convened pursuant to Section 465 of the Local Government Act to consider the following bylaws. City of Cranbrook Bylaw, Official Community Plan, Our Path to Cranbrook 2042, Amendment Bylaw number 4190-2025, and City of Cranbrook Zoning Amendment Bylaw number 4191-2025. This public hearing is being held in person and electronically with residents and interested parties being given the opportunity to express their views. This meeting is being broadcast live from the city's website, and there's a link on the homepage that will take you directly to the meeting. At this public hearing, any person who believes that their interest in property is affected by the proposed bylaws will be given an opportunity to be heard. No one will be or should feel discouraged or prevented from making their views known. However, it is important that all who speak at this meeting restrict their remarks to matters contained in the bylaws, and it is my responsibility as chair of this meeting to ensure that all remarks are so restricted. Members of council may ask questions of you following your submission. However, the main function of council members this evening is to listen to the views of the public and not debate the merits of the proposed bylaws with individual citizens. Those of you who wish to speak concerning the proposed bylaws should, at the appropriate time, begin by clearly stating your name and address, and then give us the benefit of your views. You will be given 5 minutes for your submission, and I will call for submission 3 times for each bylaw. Once a public hearing is closed, members of council cannot take any further input regarding the proposed bylaws, and will then deal with the bylaws during the regular meeting of council held after the public hearing. So the first bylaw for consideration tonight is the proposed City of Cranbrook Official Community Plan, Our Path to Cranbrook 2042, Amendment Bylaw number 4190-2025. The bylaw amendments are to facilitate commercial development of the properties located at 4142 and 4200 McPhee Road with the following proposed text amendments. Deleting and replacing text sections that speak to commercial development and development phasing. Number 2, deleting and replacing the Neighborhood Plans Appendix 1 Conceptual Development Plan Map, which will change the development district's designation from UH Urban Holdings to a new designation HTL/CRC, Hotel, Retail, and Commercial District. And thirdly, updating the OCP Schedule 17 Highway Commercial Development Permit Area to designate the subject lands as Highway Commercial Development Permit Area and designate additional properties on the highway corridor that were not previously designated. I will call on any members of the public who are in the chamber tonight to speak first. If you wish to provide comments, please come up to the podium, provide your name and address before giving us your comments. If you are on the phone line waiting to speak, callers will be identified by the last 2 digits of the phone number, or if you have pre-registered, we will call you by name. Please make sure you know which number you are calling from and listen for it to be called. When it is your turn to speak, you will be allowed to unmute yourself by pressing *6, and you will have your opportunity to provide us with your views. If you have not pre-registered and wish to speak, please press *3 on your phone to signal staff you wish to address council. I will now call for first time for submissions. Nothing online.
So Mayor Price, we have no registered speakers and no callers online.
Thank you. I will now call a second time for submissions. And I will call a third and final time for submissions. Hearing no further comments, I will now close the public hearing for the proposed City of Cranbrook Official Community Plan, our Path to Cranbrook 2042 Amendment Bylaw number 4190-2025. The next bylaw for consideration tonight is the proposed City of Cranbrook zoning amendment bylaw number 4191-2025. The purpose of the proposed amendments is to facilitate commercial development on the lands located at 4142 and 4200 McPhee Road. The proposed text amendments are as follow. Amending the permitted uses in the general permitted use section in the hotel development district and retail and commercial district. Number 2, deleting general regulations that restrict the maximum square footage of commercial and retail uses, eating and drinking establishments, and professional services. Number 3, adding setbacks and increasing the allowable heights for building and structures in the retail and commercial district. Number 4, deleting and replacing the comprehensive development zone mapping, which will designate the subject properties as retail and commercial district / hotel district, development districts, and change the zoning for portions of the subject lands from urban holding zone UH to comprehensive development zone 1 CD1 Wildstone. I will now call first time for submissions.
Okay, and Mayor Price, also there is no registered speakers and no speakers online.
Thank you. I will now call a second time for submissions. And I will now call a third time for submissions. Hearing no further comments, I now close the public hearing for the proposed City of Cranbrook zoning amendment bylaw number 4191-2025. I now reconvene the regular meeting of council for April 7th, 2025. Moving into bylaws, the first bylaw for consideration tonight is from the Engineering and Development Services regarding official community plan or Path to Cranbrook 2042, amendment bylaw number 4190-2025. This bylaw is back before council tonight for third reading and was the subject of tonight's public hearing. Can I get a motion that that subject to council's consideration of the public hearing input received up to and including the public hearing of April 7th, 2025, council give third reading to City of Cranbrook official community plan, our Path to Cranbrook 2042, amendment bylaw number 4190-2025. Mover, please. Councillor Stetsky, Councillor Popoff. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. The second bylaw for consideration tonight relates to the same property and is the City of Cranbrook zoning amendment bylaw number 4191-2025. Can I get a motion that subject to council's consideration of the public hearing received up to and including the public hearing of April 7th, 2025, council give third reading to City of Cranbrook zoning amendment bylaw number 4191-2025. Mover, Councillor Popoff, Councillor Ray. Discussion. Councillor Graham.
Yeah, thank you. Just a quick question. Might be a bit of an oddball question, but I know Mr. Matika likes those. If by chance that there can be access off the highway, I know we're looking at different ways and that looking at the highway corridor and accessing, maybe creating some more accesses off the highway to properties along here. Who owns Rails to Trails? Is it truly owned by that organization, or does CP still own it and they just lease it? Do we know that information?
Councillor Graham, through the mayor, that is jointly owned between the City of Cranbrook and the City of Kimberley.
Okay.
So there is an agreement that did transfer that land. So it does, any changes to that would require local government to government consultation.
Okay, thank you.
Further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. The next bylaw for consideration is the Subdivision and Development Servicing Amendment Bylaw number 4192-2025, which is back before council tonight for adoption. Can I get a motion that council adopt Subdivision and Development Servicing Amendment Bylaw number 4193-2025? Councillor Ray. Councillor Bassett. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. The next bylaw.
I was opposed.
Sorry. Apologize, Councillor Graham. Was it
Opposed.
opposed? Oh, okay. Capture that, Marnie. Thank you. The next bylaw is the building amendment bylaw number 4194, which is back before council tonight for adoption. Can I get a motion that council adopt building amendment bylaw number 4194, 2025? Councillor Bassett. Councillor Ray. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. Thank you.
It's not. I'm opposed.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm a little, two opposed. My apologies. That's carried with two opposed. I'm not trying to railroad you here. Yeah. So we have Councillor Graham and Councillor Popoff as opposed. The next bylaw tonight is from Recreation and Culture Department regarding their fees and charges. I'll ask Trevor to speak to this report, please. Thanks, guys.
Evening, Mayor and Council. So tonight, staff bring to you the Recreation and Culture Fees and Charges bylaw for the next 2 years. As we discussed earlier in the Committee of the Whole, this is a different perspective or way of looking at setting fees and charges. This is done by user-based, the beneficiary, user-based beneficiary type setting of the fees. As staff mentioned earlier, it is difficult as not many communities have gone down this path at this point, but we feel we've gone down in a way that doesn't affect our user groups drastically or dramatically, and we've set a 2-year time frame to catch up our fees and charges to meet with these beneficiary fees.
Thank you, Trevor. Can I get a motion that council give first reading to Recreation and Culture Fees and Charges bylaw number 4195, 2025? Councillor Bassett. Councillor Peabody. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Can I get a motion that council give second reading to Recreation and Culture Fees and Charges bylaw number 4195, 2025? Councillor Popoff. Councillor Bassett. Discussion. All in favor? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Can I get a motion that council give third reading to Recreation and Culture Fees and Charges bylaw number 4195, 2025? Councillor Ray, Councillor Graham. Discussion. Councillor Ray. Councillor Popoff. Councillor Ray.
Thank you, Councillor Popoff. Just for any folks in the community who are interested in this issue, I would encourage folks to look at the package from the Committee of the Whole meeting for additional background information on this. So yeah, just need to go to the city portal and look for that package there. But the information from the Committee of the Whole meeting, I think, really provides the detailed rationale and the thought that has gone into this.
Thank you for that. Councillor Stetsky.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And I think we brought this up at the Committee of the Whole meeting, but looking for a report a year from now to see what's happened with usage based on new fees. And I think you said that that would be forthcoming.
Nothing further. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. The next bylaw is from Finance Department regarding the water frontage tax amendment bylaw. I'll ask Charlotte to please give us an overview of the report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So tonight we're seeking 3 readings of the bylaw amendment to increase water frontage from $11 to $13 per taxable meter of frontage. Frontage taxes are imposed on property that is capable of connecting to any water main, whether the property is actually connected. And the frontage taxes support annual water fund debt payments and contributions to the Water Capital Reserve. Water frontage taxes are expected to increase to $22 per taxable meter by 2028. Within the 5-year financial plan, there is $27 million worth of borrowing planned in the water fund. That borrowing will result in about $1.6 million annual debt payments. Those numbers do not include the water treatment plant. We've left that out of the calculation as that tends to be, one that we hopefully can defer. So in addition to all those debt payments, which are supported by frontage taxes, the other item that's impacting the frontage taxes in both funds actually is the 2021 annual target that was set of $1 million in each of those funds to go towards the annual capital program. The expectation was that by 2026 we would reach that target. So we'll see in the next report that in the case of the sewer fund, it's been recognized that the annual target of $1 million by 2026 set back in 2021 is not enough. It is fully expected that the same will be the case for the water fund. However, given the number and the magnitude of the upcoming capital water projects outside of the annual capital program, staff will need more time to assess the implications on the funding needed for the annual program. So the increases we're talking about tonight are to address the completion of that $1 million target, and then also the upcoming borrowing as it impacts 2025. And we'll be having a similar discussion in next year if the projects roll out as planned.
Thank you, Charlotte. And I get a motion that council give first reading to the water frontage tax amendment bylaw number 4198, 2025. A mover, please. Councillor Peabody, Councillor Popoff. Discussion. Councillor Bissett, Councillor Stetsky, Councillor Grimm.
Well, thank you. I guess I just wanted an update on what's happening with water meters, because that would have an impact on this if it ever comes about, I would think.
Councillor Bissett through Mayor Price, I'll take a piece of that.
Okay.
So the water meters will dictate user fees, which are separate from frontage taxes. But in all likelihood, we will have to borrow for water meters, which will then impact frontage taxes. And none of that is anticipated in these increases you're seeing here.
So my thinking on water meters was that this would eventually replace the frontage taxes because, or reduce them, because then you'd have people paying for their consumption, at least maybe not on the sewer end of things, but at least on the water. Maybe you could clarify that if I'm thinking wrong.
Councillor Bissett through Mayor Price. There are some municipalities have no parcel taxes and fund everything through user fees. Our user fees would be very high if we were to combine the two. Now, it depends on how the user fees, once we go to water meters, are structured. If they are structured in such a way as to capture the needs in the capital program, then yes, there would be no need for frontage taxes or parcel taxes. But then, as I said, then your user fees would be significantly higher. So I think those details are to be sussed out as we work through the program. Mike may have some additional comments.
Councillor Brissette through the mayor. We are working right now on gathering some information and working with our consultant on establishing fees or rates and looking at that exercise of how they would balance between a frontage or a parcel tax and the utility rates. So that's something that we're gathering that information now in anticipation of bringing that forward to council, hopefully in the coming couple months to look at what's the best practice for that. As Director Osborne alluded to, if you put a lot of your rates into user fees, then it's more volatile depending on if you have less usage, more consumption. And there may be some opportunities to phase that in so we can still disincentivize high water users, but ensure that we collect the amount of revenue that we do need in a sustainable manner. So we will look forward to having those conversations with council and looking at what the forecast would be for that implementation including what desire there is to be more proactive with implementing universal metering on top of the current approvals that we've got forward with our bylaws as far as all new builds or retrofits that meet that criteria.
CEO Virtual.
Maybe I could just give you a simple example from a community that did use water meters that I recently came to Cranbrook from. Was we had all the fees in the user fees for and then we worked on a system to, like, what it was is seasonal use. So people would shut the water off, say for 8 months and go to Florida. So then they would have not contributed, like the cost of maintaining the pipes, the water system flushing, the hydrant maintenance, all that stuff, like the capital works, they weren't contributing. So the fees all had to be placed on the users that were still using and actually using the water. So there is some fixed costs to owning and operating a water system that needs to be the base rate. And then the metered rate for use needs to be on top of that. So kind of a two-tier structure. Even if we did go to that, what you spoke about, we'd still need some type of a two-tier system.
Very good. Councillor Steske.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, we certainly need to get the water meters. I'm just curious, and I think you answered it partly, Charlotte, substantial increases on the water one, but when we get to the sewer one next, there's one increase and then none others predicted for the future. Is that just because we don't have the information yet to look at those fee increases?
Councillor Stetsky through Mayor Price. There aren't, we've recently done a lot of work in the sanitary sewer reserve on that service, in particular out at the lagoons, and of course the piping from Victoria out to the lagoons. So there are no significant projects in the sewer fund with the exception of the desludging. And then I mentioned in the report, there's also a reference to the sewer work over at Beaumont that's funded from the reserve. So those are two big projects that are sort of new-ish that are impacting the reserve. And at this point, the increase to $12 per meter is sufficient. But as with the water fund, we are still there's every year we're getting new information and better information. So you're absolutely right. At this point in the 5-year financial plan, there is no need to continue escalating those frontage taxes. Now, having said that, there's maybe two ways of looking at this, which is, slow, steady increases regularly, as opposed to some drastic increases that we're seeing in the water fund. Perhaps that's, another way of looking at this. Mike and I talk about this a lot, just around all this, how much better our information is every year. And, we're getting to a place where we need to probably have a really, really robust discussion with council about what do we have, what is it looking like financially in terms of our reserves, because you can see based on these two reports that we are doing a bit of stitching things together, and we've just been, at least certainly from my perspective, been a little bit hesitant to bring forward increases that aren't lined up with things in the budget, even though I feel very comfortable saying to council that what we're putting aside now is not enough. I just don't have a target for you yet. So excellent question.
Councillor Graham, then Councillor Peabody.
My question was answered.
Thank you. Councillor Peabody.
Thank you, Mayor. Quick question for CFO Osborne. Looking at all these projects, everything's has a 30-year term. Where does the argument come as far as having a shorter term and paying less interest compared to having it go over 30 years and paying significantly more interest?
Councillor Peabody through Mayor Price, also a very good question. As much as possible within the MFA restrictions, we try to match the life of the asset to the term of the debt issue. 30 is the maximum that we can, the maximum term we can borrow for. And many of these assets have a life expectancy beyond 30 years. So, and then we've had this discussion before about the whole intergenerational equity and all of that. So there are a number of reasons why, but primarily it's to try as much as possible to match the life expectancy of the asset.
Further? All the question, all in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Can I get a motion that council gives second reading, excuse me, to the water frontage tax amendment bylaw number 4198, 2025? Councillor Stansky, Councillor Ray, discussion. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously as well. Can I get a motion that council give third reading to water frontage tax amendment bylaw number 4198, 2025? Mover, please. Councillor Blissett, Councillor Peabody. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Next up is another bylaw from finance regarding the sewer frontage tax amendment bylaw number 419925. I'll ask Shart to speak to this as well.
Thank you, Mayor Price. So here also, we are seeking 3 readings of the bylaw amendment to increase sewer frontage taxes this time from $10 to $12 per taxable meter of frontage. Similar to water, we have the target of $1 million by 2026. The target was to be achieved in 2026. So since 2021, most municipalities, including the city of Cranbrook, have experienced significant increases to many of its cost centers. Capital projects have been particularly hard hit. So in the case of the sewer fund, it has been recognized that the target of $1 million by 2026, set 5 years ago, needs to be modified. So the frontage tax increase you're seeing today is necessary to prevent a deficit in the sewer capital reserve. So in addition to cost increases, 2 specific projects are impacting the reserve. The lagoon desludging project, I'm just going to provide probably primarily for the public, some information on that. So the original proposal contemplated borrowing for this work. Through consultation with the Municipal Finance Authority, it was determined that the project does not qualify for borrowing. This was expected, but until more certainty about risk mitigation strategies could be determined, the project was presented as originally proposed. Following the discussion with MFA, the project was scaled back from the original complete desludging at a cost of $4.5 million to removal of less sludge or less material, which would still ensure an improved operational state for the next several years. The budget for the scaled back work is $1.8 million, funded from the sewer capital reserve. So last year when we had the discussion about the desludging reserve, the 4.5, we talked about borrowing it. I was pretty sure that that wouldn't be allowed, and it wasn't. So the 1.8 million is being funded entirely from the reserve. Most of that is coming from money we set aside in 2024 and 2025 for desludging, but it wasn't intended to address this desludging event. It was intended to, start already funding the one we're anticipating in 10 years, which it would be desludging cell 1 again. So I would like to ask for council's willingness to walk with us on this path, on this reserve, because it is going to be something where our information evolves as we, for example, in 2025, we're going to desludge. We don't know, the team doesn't know what they're going to find, how much material has accumulated since it was last desludged, and what's the cost going to be in current dollars. So I anticipate, quite frankly, annual tweaks to this desludging reserve for quite some time. So, but nonetheless, a $1.8 million withdrawal from our reserve is very significant. In addition to that, the Beaumont sanitary sewer project targeted for 2027, another $1.4 million from reserves. So I know that there are other sewer projects out there. For example, if we talk about Victoria, and none of that is in our capital plan at this point. I'm not sure how much of it Mike has covered in his annual plans, but as standalone projects funded from the reserve, they're not impacting the reserve at this time.
Thank you very much, Charlotte. Can I get a motion that council give first reading to sewer frontage tax amendment bylaw number 4199 2025. Mover, please. Councillor Bissett. Councillor Peabody. Discussion. Councillor Peabody.
Thank you, Mayor. I do have one question about the scaled back desludging of the other lagoons. What's the risk that by scaling back now, we're going to make the future desludging quite a bit more expensive?
Councillor Peabody through Mayor Price. I would suspect, I mean, Mike might be able to answer this better. Curtis Mummery and I are the ones that we work together on this. He has been working with his consultants. There is, and from what I understand, it will likely make us have to desludge again sooner. But at this stage, there really isn't a choice. It's because we can't borrow for it. And in order to come up with the full 4.5 million, we would have to mine other reserves where those balances are already somewhat tenuous. So I'm not, okay.
Maybe just a little further is also, we've improved our wastewater treatment processes and aeration. And so now that cell 1 has been completely desludged, the moving over to the next cells is going to be a lot less, and cell 1 will be taking everything for the foreseeable future. And so we're expecting better results than we might have had in the past. So there is a number of, like, as Charlotte said, there's a lot of moving parts to this right now. So we're going to need some time to see how things go.
Just
Certainly.
yeah, supplemental, if I may. Yeah, I think there's been lots of situations with the city where, something's done, kind of, yeah, trying to figure out the word without a swearing. Half, without, and then, 10 years later, we're paying double, if not triple, to do the same job if we just did it right the first time. So I just stress that we might be getting ourselves into the same situation. I just want to make sure that we're not.
Councillor Peabody through Mayor Price. The price will go up. And in the reserve, I've considered an inflation factor of 3%, which is probably lower than we might need to consider, given construction inflation is often a lot higher than CPI. However, we've just gone through this massive inflationary environment, so it's a little bit difficult to try to predict if we're going to continue to see those massive increases, or if there is going to be some sort of a relief valve on some of those costs. So we will continue to monitor it, and probably the best piece of information we'll have is when we do this desludging. And as CAO Furcho has said, our work out at the lagoon has, and our understanding of what's happening out there, it improves every year.
Councillor Graham.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have the same trepidation as Councillor Peabody, and just because we lived through the issues in cell 1 and desludging and just other past experiences around desludging practices, like I think it's important that we keep an eye on it. I'm definitely not comfortable with abandoning the plan. Like I think we need to figure out a way to make it work. Maybe it is an extra little bit of money on the frontage, but I just feel we'll be in the same position again. So I think we need to find a workaround here on how to accomplish the desludging, because I do have, it concerns me, not immediately, but again, 5 or 6, 7 years. And it's like, well, these are supposed to be done every 5 years and on cycles. We're trying to get there. We're not getting there. So I don't know. It's pay now or pay later.
Councilor Graham, through the mayor, the intention as we go forward as well is to do regular sludge surveys to monitor the effectiveness. That was a gap that has happened in the past where the desludging work was done and there wasn't any active monitoring of how the sludge buildup was accelerating. And then the more the sludge builds up, the less functional it's working. And then the more costly things get really quickly. So the goal going forward is to be doing more routine surveys and monitoring of that effectiveness, because there may be a sweet spot to do it before it needs to be done where it's a lot cheaper. rather than waiting until we had a smelly situation, which was the indication that we hadn't been doing the work. We most recently completed another sludge survey over the last few weeks, and we're just gathering that information right now to double check the work that was done a few years back does make sense. We do have better capacity to monitor and track and analyze these things compared to what we've done in the past. So I think in conjunction with the financial work and then getting, you know, the boots on the ground work done and linking those together is going to be giving us a really great benefit to make these informed decisions going forward.
Thank you, Mike. Certainly, I agree with Councillor Peabody and Councillor Graham. I think we need to get out in front of this. $2 a year increases are moving forward. I think is realistic. We got caught. We had estimates out there what our desludging was going to cost, and we weren't even close. I forget how far we were out, but we expected that, and all of a sudden we're $4 million short, or $4.5 million short, whatever it was. And yeah, we certainly don't want to see that happen again. So I think we should be making sure that our reserves and our frontage taxes are anticipating that move. I just don't see the point of leaving it at $12. If we could be adding $2 a year, I don't think that is, exceptional. Certainly, Charlotte.
Mayor Price, if I might just, originally when the project came forward, I don't know, 2 years ago at $4.5 million, there had been no opportunity to plan for that. So, we took a stab at maybe it could be borrowed for, even though we thought, okay, probably not. And so we immediately, as soon as that was on the radar, we started planning for the reserve. And it is the money in the reserve over the last 2 years that have allowed us to even do the 1.8. Now, I know that sounds a little bit odd because you think, well, you're increasing the frontage tax to pay for the money you already have, but that money that was sitting in there was a buffer, and that buffer was supposed to be in there for 10 years, not drawn out. So by drawing it out so early, and it, for an event it wasn't even intended to fund, it's put the reserve in a precarious situation. Because, as I said, that money and the money collected every year would have been acting as a buffer until we can get the better information I alluded to earlier. So I couldn't agree more. I mean, if we could do a $4.5 million desludge, we absolutely should do that, but we can't.
Thank you very much, Councillor Stetsky.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And just again, looking at the numbers, if council wanted to decide now to make it a $2 increase each year for the life of this particular model, is that advisable, or would you bring it back to us next year to bump it up? Because we've seen this situation now too many times, I think, in the last year where there haven't been increases for 10 years, 12 years, and then all of a sudden we're putting major increases in place that, really add up after a while. So I would rather do something in a planned and way than, have to deal with this later. So what's your advice? Do it now or wait till next year to look at perhaps increasing it then?
Councillor Stetsky through Mayor Price. So to further complicate this, the desludging is an operational expense that we are saving for through user fees. And those user fees are going into the capital reserve. So frontage taxes are not paying for desludging. User fees are. And last year, the water user or the sewer user fees had a significant increase. So, the reserve is a tool that we're using, and we're monitoring it separately within the reserve to accumulate the desludging reserve. It's kind of an in-out every year, but it does go into the reserve. And as I It's an accounting in out, but it sits in the reserve. And if we draw it down, as I was talking about earlier, we miss the buffer. We lose the buffer within the reserve, which is what has happened. But the desludging is not being paid for by frontage taxes. And to further complicate that, when we were thinking it was going to be borrowing would have been paid for with frontage taxes. So within, simply by flipping how we were going to fund this, we have really stirred the pot because everything has changed. So user fees have been increased and will continue to be increased to deal with the desludging. But what you are referring to in the sewer reserve with respect to other projects is still a problem. And as I said earlier, we simply just don't have the specific detail to come to council and say, and in particular with all the increases on the water side, we've had discussions that the $1 million target that was set in 2021 is now a $2 million target. But until we can have an opportunity to actually have that discussion with council and sort of lay that out a little bit more succinctly, we have not acted on that yet.
Councillor Ray.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the deep knowledge and expertise from our management team on this topic, and appreciate as well the concern and the desire to provide helpful oversight from council. From my perspective, I'm comfortable with what management has brought to us this evening, and I think we are all on the same page that we're very concerned about this. We're very aware that this is something we need to watch carefully. But and of course, as has been alluded to, for next year's budget process, if we have additional information, et cetera, we can then adjust those amounts accordingly for the years ahead. So for myself, I look forward to supporting this motion as presented.
Thank you. Councillor Graham.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think we need to, like you say, continue to monitor what's taking place. There already is an increase this year, so it's not like we need to make a rash decision tonight on anything else, and that can come back to budget discussions for next year.
I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Can I get a motion that council gives second reading to the sewer frontage tax amendment bill on number 4199, 2025? Mover, please. Councillor Stetsky, Councillor Bassett. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Can I get a motion that council give third reading to sewage frontage tax amendment bylaw number 4199, 2025? Mover, please. Councillor Popoff, Councillor Graham. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. And the final bylaw for consideration tonight is from Corporate Services regarding the firearms bylaw number 4200, 2025. I'll ask staff to review the bylaw for us, please. Who do we have? Marnie?
Yes.
Thank you.
So this is a firearms bylaw which regulates the use of firearms within the city of Cranbrook. We did a review of it, and the bylaw has been in place since 1994. We did realize we were missing one provision to include an additional exemption under the exemption section for any of the contractors and employees of the provincial government who are doing work within the city's boundaries. They weren't in there, so we've added that piece. And we also picked up there's fines and penalties that have changed under the criminal code since the parent bylaw was originally adopted in 1994. There's no other changes.
Thanks, Marnie. Can I get a motion that council give first reading to firearms bylaw number 4200, 2025? Mover, please. Councillor Blissett. Councillor Peabody. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Can I get a motion that council give second reading to firearms bylaw number 4200, 2025? Councillor Ray, Councillor Popoff. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. Can I get a motion that council give third reading to firearms bylaw number 4200, 2025? Mover, Councillor Stetsky, Councillor Bassett. Discussion. No. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, moving into new business. The first report is from Finance regarding the 2025 to 2029 outstanding budget decisions. Charlotte, could you lead us through a little bit of a review of this report?
Mayor Price, thank you. Yes, I can. So this is a bit of a housekeeping report. There are 3 separate resolutions that I'd like council to consider. Each of them should be considered in isolation of the others. They are just to address some items that had come up through the budget process that we haven't cleaned up yet. So on December 11th, we reviewed capital projects with council. A number of projects were deferred. 3 still have to be formally approved by council to be included in the budget. So the Gold Creek Dam, it was publicly deferred as a successful grant application the information couldn't be released until January, so the project was deferred. So staff is seeking council's formal approval to include the project in the 5-year financial plan. So Mayor Price, would you like to do each resolution? Okay, so the first resolution then is that council approve Gold Creek Dam project in 2025 with a value of $15,165,490.
Move it, please. Councillor Ray, Councillor Graham. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you.
Thank you. The second item is the automated recycling vehicle, deferred because council had not yet approved an in-house service. So the city is currently seeking public input on curbside garbage and recycling collection, including frequency, container size, and the potential addition of organics collection. Public consultation involves 2 types of surveys at the same time, a statistically valid survey and a public opinion survey. The statistically valid survey will provide a scientifically reliable snapshot of what residents collectively think. The public opinion survey is designed to gather ideas and comments from everyone who chooses to participate. The service is currently provided by a third party. The contract with the third party expires in April of 2026. The lead time to purchase the vehicle is 18 to 24 months. Staff are recommending that council approve including the vehicle in the budget with the caveat that staff seek council approval prior to beginning the purchase process. The vehicle is funded from reserves. If council does not wish to proceed with the purchase, the funds would not be withdrawn from the reserve. If council decides to move ahead with the in-house delivery of curbside recycling and the vehicle has not been included in the budget, staff will have to come back to council with a budget amendment. So the resolution regarding this item is that council approve the automated recycling vehicle project in 2025 with a value of $450,000 and further direct staff to seek council approval prior to procurement solicitation.
Move it, please. Councillor Stetsky. Councillor Ray. Discussion. Councillor Brissette, Councillor Stetsky.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm voting against this. We are already providing this service. I don't think this is the time to be looking at purchasing a vehicle at an expense of this magnitude that I don't believe we need to do. We've heard repeatedly from multiple people about the state of our reserves. And I think they need to be maintained in order to deal with unplanned eventualities. And I do not think we need to do this. So I wanted to move that council not approve, but I can accomplish the same thing by voting against this. So
Thank you. Councillor Stetsky, then Councillor Ray.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So just so I understand the process, this is basically just giving staff an opportunity to start checking out availability of vehicles. Because to me, one of the advantages of having this in our back pocket, because I assume we're still potentially going to negotiate or try and negotiate a renewed contract with the private sector, or have we made the decision to go in-house? I don't remember making that decision. So I guess from my perspective, if we're still looking to maybe sit down and try and negotiate so that the city doesn't have to spend the money, that's knowing that the city would consider it might be helpful in those negotiations. But so where are we with that whole question on what the city wants to provide versus what we're still willing to renegotiate?
Councillor Stetsky through Mayor Price. So from my perspective, what I need is to know whether or not you want the vehicle included in the budget. That doesn't mean the vehicle is purchased. So the resolution does, typically, if an item is included in the budget, we don't come back to council again for, okay, we're now ready to procure. Do you give us your approval? Your approval in the budget means that we can procure whenever we're ready. In this case, what we're saying is included in the budget with the caveat that we don't procure until we come back to you. And the reason for that is it's not to go out and start looking. We could do that. We could start looking. We just simply couldn't offer a quote or an RFP or a tender. However, right now there's a public survey out there about curbside recycling and organics collection, I believe. So no, council has not made a decision one way or the other. I think waiting to hear back, see the results of the public survey. The third-party contract that we currently have expires next April. So, and we need to know, staff needs to know whether to start the discussions with that third-party contractor or to go in-house. In the information provided by Caitlin, the cost benefit of there was a cost benefit to going in-house. So that's sort of what's needing to be decided. Continue, stick with the third party, or go in-house. What we're trying to achieve tonight is if we don't include the vehicle in the budget and council decides to move ahead with the service in-house, then we need to, and if we need to start the procurement process this year, because there's such a long lead time, we will need to come back to council for a budget amendment because the truck isn't in there. As opposed to the truck is in there, and if council, through the information they receive from the survey, decides that they do want to bring this in-house, we would need to start looking at issuing a procurement document this year because there's such a long lead time. And how we deal with the expiry of the contract in April, honestly, is outside of my sphere. So yeah, I'm not sure if I've answered your question, Councillor Stetsky, but I'll sum it up or close it up there.
Yes, supplemental if I might. So what exactly are you asking council to agree to tonight? What are the implications of it, if any?
Councillor Stetsky, through none, other than it's included in the budget, and we would not initiate procurement without coming back to council and getting council's approval to start the procurement process.
Saves the time of the budget.
Yeah, so it saves the time of a budget amendment.
That's all right.
Thank you, Mayor. Along those same lines, so just to clarify, from my perspective, it sounds like this is a placeholder in the budget process and that at a future date, we're going to have a very robust discussion about the business case. And that's not, so I look forward to that very robust discussion, having a very close look at that business case. But from my perspective, I see CFO Osborne nodding that this is a placeholder in the budget process. And from that perspective, I'm comfortable supporting the motion, and I fully support that future discussion where we're really going to work through the analysis of the business case and make the decision as a separate decision. And just to clarify, in the report, under budgetary impact, all implications of the resolutions are reflected in the proposed 2025-2029 5-year financial plan, resulting in the 6.4% tax levy. So all of these resolutions are already wrapped up. And that's because you're planning ahead and you're ready. Yeah. So I think this is more of a budget procedural issue, and the business case analysis and the whole discussion about our action steps on this matter are going to be a separate one that we'll take on a future date.
Thank you. Councillor Popoff.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I guess I'm going to present the other side of the coin. I'd sooner wait until we have the full amount of information to discuss, debate over, make decisions on. I think we do a little bit now and then it gets locked in for all the reasons you mentioned, which I agree. And then we have to go back and revisit them anyway to start the whole conversation again. And likely the $450,000 with all the craziness going on in the world might get bumped in a year or so from now, and we're back to another number anyway. So I think we just let this thing pass and see how it plays out.
You got a comment, Charlotte?
Thank you, Mayor Price. That's perfectly fine. I'm as Councillor Ray suggested, it's a placeholder. It's a budgetary procedural item, and I just need to know whether or not we wish to include it. If council does not wish to include it, I would defeat this motion, and then what I would say is that the budget or the automated recycling vehicle is not included in the 2025 budget. We could move it to 2026 if that's something council wants to consider. Yeah, I mean, that's an option as well.
Everybody clear? I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? The motion defeated. Thank you, Charlotte. Thank you. Good discussion.
Mayor Price, just if I might, based on how everything was done on December 11th, we have a resolution for the projects that were denied or not approved into the financial plan. So now again, this sort of leaves this item as a deferred item. So I need the item to be either denied as we resolved in December on all the projects that were denied. Yeah, just it needs to be denied if that, or move to 2026.
Somebody want to make a motion? Councillor Peabody?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I'd like to make the motion that we move this project to the 2026 budget.
Seconder was Councillor Bassett? No? Councillor Ray? Discussion. All in favor? Oh, sorry. Apologize, Councillor.
Yeah, just really quick. I think by that time we'll have that thorough discussion that Councillor Popoff mentioned, and we can actually make a more informed decision.
Exactly. Further? Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? There's two that opposed. It would be Councillor Graham and Councillor Bassett. So the motion is carried.
And Mayor Price, if I might, so I fully expect that we'll have a similar discussion this upcoming December about 2026 capital projects, where there will be another opportunity to look at this. And at that point, we'll have more information from the public survey.
Thanks, Charlotte.
Then the next item, there's no action required from council on this. This was the final deferred item that needs a decision, but at this point, there's no action required as this is the workplace safety and staff performance evaluation or elevation. Human Resources has withdrawn the request. The department will present an updated request to council during the next session of budget deliberations. And then the final item is the Moyer Park Reserve principal payment on interfund borrowing. Council approved interfund borrowing between the Moyer Park Reserve and the Facilities Reserve to fund emergency repairs at the Memorial Arena. The repairs were completed in 2024, resulting in an interfund lending of $2.6 million. Principal repayments of $132,000 were scheduled to begin in 2025. Following council's directions to look for opportunities to reduce the 2025 tax levy increase, staff evaluated the implications of delaying the first principal payment by 1 year and determined that the delay would would pose no risks to the repayment plan in the long run. Staff is requesting council's formal approval to delay the first principal payment to 2026. The resolution is that council approve delaying the first principal payment on the interfund borrowing from the Moyer Park Reserve to 2026.
Mover, please. Counselor Popoff. Counselor Ray. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thanks, Charlotte. You battled through that one extremely well. The final report tonight is from Engineering Development Services regarding the development variant permit for building located at 32 11th Avenue South. Ask staff if they can give us a overview of this report. We have Santana on hand for that.
Good evening, everybody. Pardon me. Tonight, I am seeking council's approval for an application to vary parking regulations and a supplemental development permit for a multi-unit downtown commercial redevelopment project. It would facilitate the redevelopment and a building conversion of the vacant building at 32 11th Avenue. Attachment 1 in your package does show the property location, but for conversation, it's located across the street from the RCMP and the fire hall. It's also right in our downtown core. So this project proposes 4 commercial/retail spaces on the main floor that front 11th Avenue, and then 14 residential units behind and above the commercial. These units are proposed to be a mix of studio, 1-bedroom, and 2-bedroom units. To accommodate the 14 dwelling units, this project will require 2 variances, as our zoning bylaw requires that dwelling units that form part of a commercial property must be provided with 1 off-street parking space. Those 2 variances will be specific to parking. The first component will be to relax the minimum stall requirement from 1 stall to 0.5 stalls, reduction of 50%. And then to reduce the length of 3 of the stalls for the parallel stalls by 2 meters so that they can fit 3 stalls in the area. These type of adaptive reuse projects are easy to support. It's very supported or strongly supported in our downtown revitalization plan. In order to even realize a lot of the goals in our downtown revite plan, these types of parking variances will need to be, they might just become more common as our zoning bylaw hasn't been updated to accommodate modern standards and also the vision of the downtown revite plan. There are a myriad of different rationales to support this project, but we could kind of discuss any of them if there's a certain topic. Mostly we would be really excited to see the type of vibrancy that this would bring into our downtown and pilot how residential parking could be managed going forward.
Thank you, Santana. Can I get a motion that council approve development variance permit application 3090.20.2504 to 1, reduce the minimum required off-street parking stalls for a commercial mixed-use multi-unit development project from 1 stall per unit to 0.5 stalls per unit, and secondly, that reduce the length for parallel parking stalls from 7 meters to 5 meters for property located at 32 11th Avenue South on parcels legally described as Lot 6, 7, 8, and 9, Block 87, District Lot 5, Kootenai District Plan 669. Mover, please. Councillor Stetson, Councillor Peabody. Discussion. Councillor Bassett, Councillor Ray, Councillor Pablo.
Well, thank you. So what I'm wondering about is where people can park if they can't park at their site. Because at point, I wish it wasn't so, but I do think it's unrealistic to think that people aren't going to have a car. We're not a large enough urban center at this point, in my opinion, for most people to choose to not have a car. And So I'm wondering where else they can park if we're not going to provide them with parking spaces near their home, at their home.
Sure. To Councillor Blissett through the chair. There, in our zoning bylaw right now, we have clauses that would allow additional parking or that the parking be available off-site. The requirements are that it be within less than 150 meters. So there's that option there. It would be the responsibility of the landlord to manage this parking, who gets it, what if it's first come, first serve, that type of thing. But there would be options for them to, offsite options, or could potentially lease stalls from the city when we finish revamping our parking requirements downtown. It would be, there are additional options for them, but just not on their site due to the constraints.
Yes,
Yeah.
because I do think that's going to have to be done because, I mean, I just don't see very many people operating without a car in our community. I mean, it's one that we have some things downtown, that's true, but I mean, there's an awful lot that people, most people are accessing beyond Cranbrook. And so they will have a car. So we need to be working with the developer as to where are people going to park? Because I think it's unrealistic to expect them not to have a vehicle.
Thank you. Councillor Ray.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for your review of this, Santana. I think, as we've had this is sort of the second project we've had lately that I would say is innovative and is really exciting in terms of our downtown revitalization plan. And I certainly agree with Councillor Blissett about the challenges around having a car and the area we live in. But we're in such a tight housing market, and I think this will be such a great place to live, whether it's for young professionals or somebody who's downsizing and just wants to be downtown and not have yard work. I think people will see this as a positive opportunity. So I appreciate the information in the report that there is an opportunity to look at off-site parking, but I think we need to also embrace the innovative nature of this project. So I look forward to supporting this motion.
Thank you. Councillor Popov, then Councillor Stetsky.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So, I mean, whether there's off-site parking available or not, I mean, we're talking about a business decision between the owner, the landlord, and the tenant. If the tenant knows, here's my challenges with parking, I either want to move in or I don't want to move in, and that's a business decision that the landlord is the risk the landlord's taking right now by saying I only want half a stall, and in their business decision, I hope they factor that in, that they might be a little harder to find the right tenants. So I think it's a business decision, and maybe we don't need to be involved with this.
Thank you. Councillor Stetsky, and then Councillor Graham.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I really like this concept. They're also talking, of course, about including bicycle parking places. About 4 or 5 years ago, when I was in Nelson chatting with some of the residents there, when e-bikes became popular, I talked to people that had sold their car to buy an e-bike because Kootenay Car Share was there. If they wanted a vehicle, they would just contact Kootenay Car Share and away they go, which would be a great addition to Cranbrook as well. So I think both from a housing perspective and an environmental perspective, this is a good project for Cranbrook, moving us forward in several ways.
Thank you. Councillor Graham.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think, again, being one of the first projects that we're seeing of this type downtown, it's a great way to pilot it out, to see how it works, and we need to start somewhere, and I think this is a good place to start. And as Councillor Popov mentioned, the developer is the one that understands the business case and what is required. So, and the right person looking for that fit will rent the unit. So.
Thank you. Further? Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you so much. Can I get a motion that council approve development permit application 3060.20 2503 for a commercial mixed-use multi-unit development project for property located at 32 11th Avenue South on parcels legally described as Lot 6, 7, 8, and 9, Block 87, District Lot 5, Kootenai District Plan 669. Mover, please. Councillor Stetsky, Councillor Ray. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Good stuff. Thanks, Santana. Good work. Now we're moving into administrative updates. We have two admin updates tonight from Recreation and Culture regarding aquatic surge tanks and common space lobby and gazebo tables. We have there's a mental block.
Thank you, Mayor.
Trevor on hand. I apologize, Trevor, to give an update. Sorry, Trevor.
Mayor and Council, yes. Recreation and Culture brings two updates today. The first one being the aquatic surge tanks. So in our quest to discover the health of our recreation facilities, we have gone into our surge tanks. And for those that don't know, the surge tanks are the big underground cement box rooms per se that house the excess water from our pools, so that when we have lots of bathers and they hop out of the pool, you know, the water's not really far down because the water came out. It just helps self-balance that. Well, these rooms are concrete walls with water pipes running through them. Water pipes that are plastic and hung up on the ceiling with metal hangers. So last year's shutdown in June, we went down the surge tanks, do our annual inspections, and noticed that there was a lot of rust appearing on the concrete walls. And we had an engineer come in February and go down into the surge tank for the wave pool and discovered that this rust is caused by the rebar inside the concrete rusting. And it's actually, as we know, when steel rusts, it expands, it pushes the concrete out, so now the concrete's cracking. The steel hangers from the pipes are broken, so the pipes are now self-suspended, and these plastic pipes are in a caustic environment, so they are becoming very brittle. The engineer has said this needs to be repaired. We have two of these tanks, one for each big pool. A ballpark estimate from the engineer was around $100,000. We are currently getting drawings done of the spaces so that we can at least go out for tender and figure out what the true cost would be to repair these. The engineer did recommend that they were repaired at the next annual shutdown, which would be this summer. And as we move forward with our asset management program, we will probably find more of these, but at some point in time, they should stop. Once we get our facilities back on track with our maintenance programs and life cycle estimates and all that good stuff, we won't be sitting here telling you how we found something broken.
So before we move on to the next item, Trevor, Councillor Stetsky has a question of Councillor Ray.
Thank you, Mayor. So we spend $110,000, and where does that leave us in terms of the future? Has it been good for 5 years, 10 years? Do we need to have something different happening there, or are we just going to replace what's there and the same thing's going to happen 15 years from now?
Mayor Price to Councillor Stetsky. You know what? That's a great question. I can assure you that technology has changed in the last 25 years, and we know what is a causing factor of this. And we do have technology now that can alter, concrete, make it waterproof and whatnot, and different materials instead of steel. And unfortunately, plastic pipes are plastic pipes. They're just going to have to go onto a life cycle replacement timeline. As far as the estimate, we know it's $10,000 for the drawings. The $100,000 is a ballpark. It could be less, it could be more, but there could also be options where they come back with us with, here's a 5-year, here's a 10-year, here's a 20-year, here's a 50-year. I don't know. I don't know what the fix, I know what kind of the fix might be, but I don't know what the materials are, and I don't know what the life cycle spans are. We've also talked about adding some ventilation to that space to help exhaust some of the caustic gases that are in the air, the chloramines and whatnot. But it's...
Councillor Ray.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a thought, and I don't need an answer to this moment for sure. I'm just thinking that, while we're working on this and analyzing options, I'm wondering about the wave pool function. So is there any, you want to balance the fun factor, but also with the cost factor. So does having the wave pool involve additional costs? When we're looking at these kinds of things, is this a moment to say, do we want to continue forever with a wave pool, or do we want to look at a different fun addition that might have lower maintenance cost? I just wonder if it might be a moment to kind of do a bit of analysis on that. But as I say, you definitely want to keep fun in the mix, but we want to make sure it's affordable over the long term.
Any further? Thank you, Trevor. And on to the common space lobby and gazebo.
Excellent. Okay, Mayor and Council. So this update is on our troubles that we've been having at Western Financial Place. So I'm sure Council is aware, as well as the public, that we've removed the gazebo tables outside Western Financial Place near the children's playground, and the internal tables at by the aquatics windows. All of our outlets, power outlets in the common spaces are locked up. We no longer have public Wi-Fi there. The common space at Western Financial Place has become a hangout area, and it's increasingly troubling for staff and patrons to use that facility. During the business hours, staff are constantly dealing with the youth, asking them to leave. We have a lot of issues with boisterous playing nature, wrestling, yelling, screaming, loud music, intoxication with alcohol and drugs. It's very unfortunate. On evenings and weekends, we've hired a security firm. Just a rough number with the hours, it's 5 hours on weeknights and 8 hours on weekends, and that works out to about $70,000 a year. And the initial thought might be that this is for our houselessness population, but it's not. It's for our troubled youth that use that area as a congregation point. Staff have also added spotlights outside the door 14 area near the gazebo and the children's playground to help deter nefarious activities and just congregation. And it's pretty unbelievable when you come to work in the morning and the items you see strewn about the facility there. I mean, the goal that staff have is to turn that place back into a fun, safe place for everybody to come, use it, enjoy it. Once we get our tenants back in for food spaces, our plan is to add tables and chairs that will then be monitored by those food companies, so that staff aren't constantly out there, cleaning up messes, dealing with the youth, dealing with the regular patrons that use that facility are going to see it as a negative, because that is the space where they would hang out and watch their families swim. We do have spaces inside, but it is also a warmer environment and whatnot. So the goal is to move everything forward from this point on.
Thank you. Well, certainly, Trevor, the way I see it, thank you very much. I think it's a very good decision by staff. Really, the way I see it, it's really a preventive measure, to deal with potential worker and public safety issues. Whether it's one thing to have a mess and the place in disarray, but we know there's active drug use down there. I'm saying, what if there's fentanyl or drug paraphernalia there, and the public or your staff are exposed to that. So we don't have a choice. I think we have a responsibility for a worker in public safety, and right at this point in time, I think this is the best option. So yeah. Councillor Stetsky.
Thank you, Mayor. So would increased vigilance by security make a difference? Is that I just noticed at times, some security people are more willing to take a more active approach in dealing with some of these issues than other security people, quite frankly. So and we're already spending about $70,000, you said, with just weekend and evenings. So I guess there would be an additional cost. But would that be helpful to have more rigorous security working on that area? Because I know people do miss having the tables and chairs there to sit and watch their kids and wait for the start of events and hockey games, et cetera.
Mayor Price through to Councillor Stetsky. Great question again. Today's youth are not intimidated by security guards. Unfortunately, in today's world of liabilities, security guards are hands off. So they can sternly tell you to stop what you're doing and then call the police. That's the extent of it. So gone are the days of, big burly football players being security guards, and then that intimidation factor no longer exists. It's unfortunate.
Further? Okay. Thanks very much, Trevor. Good luck with that. Moving on to correspondence, we have 4 items for consideration tonight. There are a couple of requests in the letters, so I'll go through them individually. The first piece of correspondence tonight is from City Glass and Windshield Shop Limited regarding commercial parking on Industrial Road number 1. I have a draft motion to refer to this, refer this to staff if council wishes. Okay, the motion is that council receive the correspondence from Steve Robertson, City Glass and Windshield Shop Limited, dated March 28, 2025, regarding commercial parking on Industrial 1, and further refer to staff for review. Can I get a mover, please? Councillor Bissett, Councillor Peabody, discussion, Councillor Graham, Councillor Popoff.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think referring to staff is good, but I think there should be a bit of a timeline around it on an actionable item, because it happens frequently and not just necessarily there. There's you can see a low bed trailer quite often parked in front of the gas, the petrol can there, and the company will just abandon it there on the road for the weekend. So it is happening throughout other areas of industrial. So it might be something that staff can work on. And this is, as bylaw is complaint driven, this is a complaint. And I think maybe we need to dig into it a little bit more on where people are leaving their commercial trailers.
Thank you. Councillor Papa.
Yes, thank you. And I agree with Councillor Graham. It's important to have the bylaw to accommodate the commercial users and their common sense needs. But as you see from the photos here, that's extreme. I don't think that's what the bylaw intended. If we can get away from double parking, tandem parking, dropping off your commercial trailer and doing maintenance and repairs on vehicles in the public parking areas, none of those were, I think, intended for this bylaw. So I would encourage staff to look at other best practices maybe in other communities, see what they're doing to address this. A bylaw, it's not a constitution. It's something that's meant to be tweaked and updated when you see special needs for this occurring. I think if it was tweaked to get rid of some of these atrocities, it would be welcomed by the whole commercial business community and not just the one company right now. So I would encourage a short-term timeline as well for staff to get back to us.
Councillor Bissett.
Thank you. What concerns me about referring this to staff is I think it's already been referred to staff. We're finding out later. So I would like to impress upon staff that we see this, there's some urgency here to deal with this. Because this is not new information to staff, it's new information to council. And so I would hope that we will get a report back on this at our next council meeting as to what is being done. I think that's reasonable.
Thank you. Councillor Peabody.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, this has been going on for 3 years that staff have been receiving this complaint. And from what I can tell, it doesn't seem like anything is being done except for verbal warnings. And the verbal warnings aren't going very far. what the issue I think that we have here is the bylaw in general that allows commercial businesses to park on city property and do that for free, where nowhere else in the city are businesses allowed to use city property, commercial businesses allowed to use city property for free.
Point.
If you look at the car dealerships along Victoria, they have to pay to use that frontage along Victoria. And I think we should basically use that same standard in industrial as well. Because what we have is a business that pays zero, property tax in Cranbrook using Cranbrook property to run their business. They're using it as a storage facility and as a place to park their vehicles where, and it's inhibiting a business that is paying a substantial amount of money. So I think it's an issue that's been brought to light, and it's definitely something that needs to be
Thank you
dealt
for that.
with. Yeah.
Thank you for that perspective. Councillor Stetsky.
Yeah, I agree with my fellow councillors. This needs to be dealt with expeditiously and dealt with firmly.
Would you like to comment, Mark, on this at all?
So just through the council, message received by the administration. So we will, I guess we've got two avenues here. We have the traffic safety committee, but I know staff have already been talking about this. And so we will be prepared to come back to council with some opportunities. And I appreciate some of the discussion tonight. Those are some of the things that we're starting to talk about too. Commercial use of public space is an excellent part of something that's, the incidental use of public property for commercial purposes, sure, but when it's a frequent and sort of contiguous to your operation, then I think we need to look at that separately. So it's excellent discussion.
Thank you. Further? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Next up is a letter from the Honorable Ravi Kahlon, Minister of Housing and Municipal Affairs, regarding an infrastructure condition assessment for capital planning grant. Received for information. Okay, thank you. Councillor Stetsky.
I might just quickly, so it's $10,000. And how are we going to use that money?
It's
Great to
staff.
see the grant. But
Yeah, it's staff time. It takes care of some of the staff time required for doing asset inventory and assessments. And that goes into our asset management planning program, as Trevor talked about, expanding that out to the rec services. This isn't part of that. This is through public works side, but it's just, we're just continually building our asset management program. And there's quite a bit of extra staff time, and there are supports. So we do take advantage of whatever grant support we can get.
Okay. Further? Thank you. Next up is a request from JCI Kootenay regarding the upcoming All Candidates Forum on April 14th, 2025. I have a potential draft motion for this request if the council wishes. Okay. The council received the correspondence from Shane Nicol Dubido, 2025 All Candidates Forum Chairperson, JCI Kootenay, dated April 2nd, 2025, regarding the JCI Kootenay All Candidates Forum, April 14th. Venue sponsorship, and further direct staff to utilize the city's free day at the Key City Theatre to host the All Candidates Forum on Monday, April 14th, 2025 as requested. Can I get a mover, please? Councillor Ray, Councillor Stetsky. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. The last item tonight is a letter from Cranbrook Disc Golf Club regarding a request for the city's assistance and approval to move the Trans-Canada Pavilion. I have another draft motion here if council wishes. The council received the correspondence from Steve Redick, President, Cranbrook Disc Golf Club, regarding a request for council support to move the Trans-Canada Pavilion at Baker Park and relocate it to the College of the Rockies, and further approve the request to relocate the sign and provide resources and assistance from Public Works Department in the amount of $1,820. Source of funds, council contingency. Can I get a mover, please? Councillor Blissett, Councillor Ray. Discussion. Councillor Ray.
Thank you, Mayor. I looked for a little more information on this prior to the meeting, and so it was interesting to learn that the Trans-Canada Trail went through a process to decommission their signs and structures throughout the country, and have offered to local groups, if to let them know if they want them. So I was curious to know what the rationale was, and this is the rationale that the Trans-Canada Trail is decommissioning these signs. So it's good, reduce, reuse, recycle.
Thank you. Further? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Now we'll go into mayor and councilors' reports. We'll start with Councilor Stetsky tonight.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple of things. One, I volunteered last night at the Headpins April Wine BTO rock concert. It was a great event. There were about 1,800 people that attended. It was well organized. I thought it was well run. For those of you who are BTO fans and might have a Winnipeg connection, he mentioned last night that the Disraeli Bridge in Winnipeg is shortly going to be renamed Bachman Turner Overdrive Bridge.
Oh, right on.
So a recognition of the long history. And it really was an excellent concert. And I can still hear, so that's a good thing too. The other thing, as we're going through the various increases, and we have seen a lot of them, of course, and we're trying to recover as much as we can in terms of the expenses that we incur to deliver services. But at some point, like we do it council meeting by council meeting, and at some point I'd like to see a summary of, and it might not be until September even before we start thinking about budget increases for next year, but take a point in time and say maybe it's September 2025 versus September 2024. And what's the average homeowner's increase in what we are paying here in Cranbrook to get a sense of where we're at? And I'd kind of like to see the same thing around development permits and development in general. So we know where we are as we head into next year's discussions, because I said we've approved a lot of increases over the last while, one at a time. But I'd kind of like to see the big picture if we can at some point.
CEO Virgil.
I just want to add just a comment is that, a lot of what we've increased is the user pay model. So they're not like the blankets where you're going to see X% across the board. It's a user pay. So a swim increase only affects those that are swimming. A cemetery increase only affects those that are using the cemetery. And so there's not really, some of those would be difficult to provide like a blanket number. It'll be because of the user pays. With this council's philosophy of shifting the tax burden from subsidized from property taxes to the user pay, and the user pay is based on actual purchases of the use. So that's, it would just depend on how we wanted to structure that, just so I know what we're looking at.
Supplemental if I might, so even just a list of here's where we were and here where we are, all lined up one after the other, so we can get a sense of where we're at.
Yeah, we certainly could do that, Councillor Stetsky, through the mayor, and just, I think to note maybe the year of the last adjustment. So you might see a change from 2024 to 2025, but the last time that increase was done was 1992 or something.
Councillor Peabody.
Nothing to report.
Nothing.
Councillor Bouchette. Councillor Ray.
Thank you, Mayor. Just two quick items. I was pleased to attend our most recent Advisory Planning Commission meeting last week on April 3rd. And just want to mention, every time I go to one of those meetings, I learn at least one thing, if not more. Of course, our staff are experts in their field, and the people around the table, the committee members, ask very insightful questions. So I appreciate the opportunity to learn at every advisory planning committee meeting, commission. And then this Wednesday, I look forward to attending our Ready Grant meeting along with Councillor Stetsky and Councillor Blissett. And of course, that's the CBT funding program administered by the RDK. And we're looking at the applications to the City of Cranbrook. So I'm looking forward to that meeting and the group of us bringing that recommendation to council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Popoff.
Yes, thank you. if those people that are interested in what's going on with Cranbrook tourism in and around the surrounding area are welcome to attend our Cranbrook Tourism AGM. It's next Tuesday, April 15th, up at the College of the Rockies. And I think there's food, so it's a good time to get some insight into what's going on with Cranbrook tourism. Secondly, I was very pleased today as we went around the table talking about that parking down to 1/2 stall per unit. I think that's very innovative for us to come up with. And I hope that can be a trend that we do with our other developers in our downtown core, our key high density areas as we look further. I don't think we should be the gatekeeper on parking. So let's let that be a business decision by them. I got a call. I was put in contact with an individual who rented one of the Bird e-scooters. And, you know, I think I said this in previous times, going past the Cranbrook Golf Course, shut right down. Because some reason that road, 2nd Street South, is prohibited zone to go to. So it's going down, you know, I guess they were able to accommodate it, but going back up, you know, it's pretty tough having to push something. And it's just a road in front of a business. It doesn't mean they're going to drive into the parking lot and go play 9 holes or anything. So can we look at that, please? And maybe we're going to flag some other areas that we may not need those prohibitions. And lastly, last fall, when the highways crew were repaving the highway going through Cranbrook, and then in the rain, in the later part of the season, they were putting down paint on the road. It's all gone. So do we know what's happening with highways and repainting the lines going down the highway? Because virtually they're all gone. I don't know what the plan is. I don't need an answer now, but the worker that was putting down the lines, I rolled down my window and I said, how long is this going to last? And he was exactly right. They'll be gone by the spring, and they pretty much are. So something.
Thank you. Councilor Graham.
So you're saying we miss oil-based paint? I have nothing to report.
I have a couple of things tonight. On Friday, C.L. Furcho and I met with Chief Superintendent Shauna Bauer and Staff Sergeant Darren Kakuno from the RCMP. It was a very good meeting. It was set up by Staff Sergeant Barry Graham and Amanda in response to our concerns about staffing levels and cost of policing, overtime, etc. So it's something that Shauna Bauer is going to look into. Chief Superintendent Bauer is actually, she grew up in the Kootenays, in the Fernie, Sparwood area. So she served in the Kootenays. She served on the island in smaller communities. She understands the issues in the smaller communities. She's extremely proactive. She's extremely supportive of her staff. She supports community policing, so she understands the type of community policing that we need here, say versus Vancouver or Kelowna, the bigger centers. So she got firsthand knowledge of smaller communities, and she's committed to making any change that we feel that is required, you know, through our consultations with Barry. Yeah, she takes on a bit of a different presence. She's one of these more hands-on and working with the staff. She will be visiting the area regularly, where I don't know that we've ever seen anybody in our area in the past. And, you know, even before we had Darren Kakuno here, I don't know if we had the regional supervisor in this area. So certainly we have their attention. They're focused on Cranbrook. She recognizes that Cranbrook does have some special needs and interests being the regional center. So she's fully appreciative of that. So I thought it went very well. Mark, any comment on that?
I think you nailed it. The appreciation that we're a regional hub that deals with regional hub issues, but we don't have the recognition in the services we need to provide for all of the issues that brings from within the Kootenays into our little town of Cranbrook. So that was a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, great. Last week as well, I was up in Fernie and I met with, had the opportunity to meet Minister Randy Neal. She's with Waterland Resources Steward, and Minister Tamara Davidson, Environment and Parks. So they're in the area. They offered an invitation to go up and have dinner and have a discussion. So yeah, I was up there for about 3.5 hours, and they were very open and accepting. So we had a really good conversation. I went up there more just to get to know you, so the face to the names, and you know, we do have some issues. We have had some issues with the environment, dealing with our homeless issues here as well. I did bring that to their attention, and you know, looking for, I think, enforcement support that you know has been lacking, and as well as maybe some financial support and some of the cleanup in the area around here. So they're definitely looking to that, and they're going to be getting back to us on that. So overall, I thought it was, you know, time well spent. And lastly, I was at a celebration of life for former councillor Ron Tarr on Saturday. Full house, as expected. And just on, I'll just quickly, a little bio on Ron. He was a great man. Ron brought his family to Cranbrook in summer 1976. And one thing about Ron Tarr is Ron just didn't move to Cranbrook. He engaged, got involved at every level. Like he was part of the community immediately, and not just like he served the community extremely well for the time he was here. He enjoyed coaching, umpiring, watching, and even just talking baseball. Ron was a Freemason and a member of the Masonic Lodge for 62 years. He served 5 terms on Cranbrook City Council. His dedication to the community includes president of the 1986 BC Summer Games, chairman of the Cranbrook 1993 BC Summer Games, manager of the Cranbrook Colts, president of the Cranbrook Curling Club, umpire-in-chief for Cranbrook Minor Ball. Ron's also served several terms on the boards of the RDK, the Union of BC Municipalities, and the Association of Kootenay and Boundary Municipalities. Ron is also the recipient of the British Empire Medal. It's a civil medal in 1963 for saving the life of a fellow lineman at great risk to his own safety. So, all the best to Ron's family. He served Cranbrook very well. We should be so proud. And with that, that's all I have. And I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Ray, Councillor Graham, all in favor? Adjourn. Thank you.